What is up, guys? Rick is here, and today we're going over the Doctrine of Passing, the Trials of Osiris auto rifle for the Taken King DLC in Destiny. Now, this gun has been getting a lot of flack. People are saying this gun is absolutely terrible and Bungie should be ashamed of themselves making a Trials of Osiris gun this bad. We're going to be going over if that's actually true, and we're going to be giving the Doctrine of Passing a fair review. Now, the Doctrine of Passing comes in two variants, the normal and Adept version. The Adept version is only acquirable from the Lighthouse chest on Mercury, and you unlock that location after going 9-0 in your Trials of Osiris run. The Adept variant spawns at a higher light from 310 to 320, whereas the normal version is 300 to 310. And the Adept variant also has the Last Resort perk passively unlocked. This perk grants increased weapon mobility and reload when you are the last person alive in your fire team. Pretty useful actually for Trials of Osiris. But for the majority of PvP encounters, the normal and Adept version are going to perform exactly the same. Now let's start off this review by going over this weapon's stats. You can see right away that this weapon belongs to the highest rate of fire, lowest impact auto rifles, just like the Atheon's Epilogue. This archetype of auto rifles has been historically very underpowered when compared to the competition. Often they do have pretty decent time to kills, however that relies on you landing all your headshots, and considering the stability for these auto rifles is often very low, that's almost impossible to do. Now moving on to the other stats of this weapon, range is extremely low unfortunately. Now stability is actually insanely high, and that's due to a couple of perks that we're going to go over in a sec, and reload speed is actually fantastically high on its own as well. A native magazine size of 66 is no joke either. Now let's move on to the perks of the Doctrine of Passing. The first perk it has is Persistence. This is going to help with controlling the recoil, unfortunately only after you've shot this weapon for a bit. Now moving on, this weapon does have Small Bore, which does help increase the range and also increases stability. However, it also has Braced Frame, which increases stability more substantially. Now, I ended up going with Braced Frame, the simple reason being is that there's no point to extend your range when you're just missing your shots. Braced Frame is going to give you the best possible stability and make it most likely to actually be able to land all your headshots. Now in the last perk slot, I have Hidden Hand, but you may have something different. The last perk slot, just like the raid weapons, is semi-randomized. The other perks that you can get for this perk slot include Rangefinder, Counterbalance, and Rodeo. Now is this weapon any good? Well, let's start out with its performance in PvE. In PvE, I really didn't mind using this weapon. Remember that in Update 2.0, auto rifles received like a 25% buff against PvE enemies. So all auto rifles are melting PvE enemies a lot quicker than they were before. The Doctrine of Passing is no different. This weapon can definitely melt enemies, especially up close. PvE doesn't have the rigorous standards that PvP does, so if you miss a few shots on a Cabal Phalanx, it's not going to matter that much. You can simply drift back onto target. However, this gun doesn't really perform very well at range. I actually took this weapon into the Nightfall, and I found that when enemies are kind of at range and you're trying to put distance between you and an enemy, it can take a long time to take down an enemy with a shield. In fact, it's really troubling to try to use this weapon at anything out of close to medium range. However, if your PvE build is like always using a sniper and you find yourself kind of overwhelmed when enemies charge you at close range, I can see you justifying using the Doctrine of Passing. Either version spawns with a very high light, and again, it does melt enemies up close, so it does have that going for it. Now moving on, how does this weapon perform in PvP? Now firstly, this weapon is capable of doing 16 damage for a headshot and 13 damage for a body shot. And here exactly is where the first problem occurs. It's capable of getting these numbers. It almost never actually gets these numbers. The range is so low that you're often getting 14-13 damage for a headshot, which is already going to lower your time to kill. And again, the main problem with this weapon is that you have these theoretical damage calculations and all this jazz, and it's all calculated by assuming you land every one of your headshots, which is freaking impossible with this weapon. But I'm going to stop here and say something that you may not have expected. There's nothing wrong with this individual weapon. The Doctrine of Passing is a good gun for its archetype. Again, the problem isn't the Doctrine of Passing. The problem is the entire fast shooting auto rifle archetype. I mean, just look at the Doctrine of Passing stats. It has almost completely maxed out stability. And even then, it's hard to control when shooting an enemy in just beginning medium range. Now, if your version does come with counterbalance, maybe that will help the recoil enough that you can utilize this weapon to medium range. However, think of what I'm saying. Maybe if you get the best possible version of this gun, you might be able to start to have kind of fair fights in beginning medium range. That really doesn't bode too well for this weapon, and let's be honest, even if you like using this weapon, if you're down to the wire, if it's Trials or Iron Banner, you're going to replace this with a pulse rifle in 2 seconds. And the saddest part of this weapon is that even if you were able to get the most stabilizing version, let's say, and you were like so pro at this game that you could control the recoil and land nothing but headshots in medium range, even if that was the case, the range of this weapon is so low that you'd already be doing like 2-3 less damage for a headshot and then already requiring more shots to kill and increasing your time to kill. Now, with that being said, this gun is still kind of fun to use. I'm sure you could win a couple of Rumble games with this weapon. I actually did. But if you're looking for a competitive PvP weapon, which I think most of you would agree that the Trials of Osiris Weapons should be, this just isn't the case. You are not really going to be breaking this out when you're playing sweaties. When you're trying to win a game, you're not going to break this out. You're going to be using your Apple of Discord or your Hawksaw or something like that. And I don't know what to say other than Bungie is just not getting it when it comes to these fast-firing auto rifles. They do not understand the risk-reward. They have lower time to kills. Guys, the time to kills for these auto rifles are 0.86 seconds against a high armor target. 0.86. The Hawksaws is 0.96. So it kills in only a tenth of a second slower, but it is a fucking laser beam. Have you ever tried to use a full-auto Hawksaw in close range? It's not very hard to do. So again, the risk reward just isn't there. These weapons, these auto rifles have always been underpowered, and whoever is in charge of testing weapons, multiplayer weapons at Bungie is just not getting it. Now that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you agreed with what I said, please remember to rate and share this video. It really helps me out, and it helps get this video out there. Maybe Bungie will see this and start, I don't know, including some common sense into their weapon testing. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter. That's going to be linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can follow as well. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.